So let's get back to Coldplay. I mean, what an opportunity to have Neha Curtis, who's a friend of Worth and Flowers, and an extraordinarily accomplished business person, friend of mine, friend of the firm, and we have Dr. Judith Joseph, who I met when you were on stage at our Living Well conference, our inaugural Living Well conference, and you were terrific.
Oh, thank you.
But just before we do our regular session here, we were chatting about this fascination, this public consumption of this whole Coldplay incident. I did a family outing 2 years ago. They came to MetLife Stadium. And they've been around for 25 plus years, Coldplay. So I was aware of their music, but not a huge fan. And then I was flying back from London one night from a business trip, and I'm looking to see, is there something on the screen I'd like to watch? I didn't see any movies or anything, but I saw this Coldplay concert live from São Paulo. And I watched it. I instantly became a big fan of theirs. I love their music, their staging. They're just a terrific big arena band. So I start playing a Coldplay around our beach house, and my grandkids think it's a hoot that the old guy, Papa, is a Coldplay fan. So I go right at it. So they're coming to MetLife Stadium that summer over in New Jersey, and I get a couple of boxes and charter a bus. And I'm the oldest of five, so I invite my brothers and sisters, my kids, my grandkids, my nieces, grandnieces, and nephews. So there's 40-something of us at MetLife Stadium. And it was a great concert. And it was great because I'm there 105 years old. I have the youngest is 5 years old. I have at that time, 8-year-old granddaughter it was her first concert.
She loved it?
Well, not only that, she memorized all her favorite song lyrics. And then she's disappointed, she says to my wife, when she finds they didn't play her favorite song. And now she knows the meaning of the word encore.
Okay.
And she's never been to a concert before. She didn't know that they leave and come back. So we just had the greatest night. And my payoff for me was we do the Last Supper. So Labor Day weekend out at the beach, that is 15, 17 of us around the table. And I go around and ask each of the grandkids, what are your favorite memories from the summer? And more than half of them, good thing they knew how to suck up to grandpa, said Coldplay.
Yeah.
Coldplay. So it was a great adventure for us. So that's why it resonates with us, this story. And then, of course, Jordan and Michaela and Lisa get the idea that they had me on tape telling this story from many months ago. And they'd never used it for anything. So they couldn't reach me. So they said, you're going to have to trust me on this one. And they edited it up and put it online. Brilliant. So it's gotten a tremendous amount of play. The good news is, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've heard from a bunch of friends over the past few days say, I saw that. By the way, we haven't been in touch in a long time. Let's reconnect. So it's had a good benefit. But why, Dr. Judith, are we so fascinated by this story?
Yeah. There are many reasons why. This story is being talked about in just about every session that I've had this week.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's
public and private?
Both, yes. And on social media. But I think it's because people have this very, very strong reaction to when they see things being wrong. Our human brain is hardwired to know right versus wrong and to react in a way that makes us physically sick when we see people getting away with things that we think they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And cheating is one of those things. And to add to that layer, as we discussed, this is a person who is a human,
resources.
Yeah, in HR,
resources, HR person. She's likely given lectures about inappropriate behaviors and relationships in the workplace, and likely has in her career reprimanded people for doing exactly
maybe more
what
than reprimand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a leader, someone who's a CEO, they have a responsibility to their investors, to their employees, to really do what's right.
There's certain ethical standards they've got to meet as business leaders, especially when you're leading a company, right?
So talk about triggering that sense of right versus wrong. There's this other term in psychiatry, and I'm probably going to butcher it because I'm from Trinidad, but Schadenfreude. Did I say that correctly?
The German word where you relish in the pain and misery of others.
Yes. And so when we see other people squirming and sometimes suffering, we get a kick out of that. And it's likely because we're I'm so glad it's not me. We get to see this fantasy, this unconscious fantasy of failure play out in someone else. So we get to experience it, but we don't have to live with it. And so there's a part of us that relishes in other people's misery.
Having done a fellowship in child psychiatry, you mentioned a term once before about in children, and it really piqued my interest. The magic syndrome?
Magical thinking.
Magical thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of us, and we probably...
And Matt, you have a mom of an 8-year-old.
Oh, I have an 8-year-old too.
Oh, yeah, we can talk.
Yes.
I'll step aside.
Well, you have an 8-year-old granddaughter, right?
Well, now she's 10.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh, no, I have another one that's 8 now.
well, children like to kind of control a situation. If they interpret something scary as happening, they'll internalize the shame and blame of it and say, well, if I had just gotten better grades, dad wouldn't have left. Or if I had just behaved more, maybe the pet wouldn't have died. It's their way of controlling scary outcomes. And so sometimes in cases like this,
But
especially...
doesn't it create guilt for the kids?
Yes, yes.
Because daddy left because of me?
Yes. But that to them is easier to handle than, oh, this happened and it could have happened to anyone, even if you did it, if you were a good person, right? It's more safe to think, well, I can control the outcome. Something I did is the reason something bad happened versus bad things happen to good people all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's scarier. It's more uncertain. So for children, especially if they witness their parents going through this, they think, well, maybe I could have done something to prevent it. So a lot of times children have a lot of shame when their parents have a fallout or divorce, or there's something like a cheating involved, because it's scary to think that this could have happened even if everyone did the right thing, right?
It's funny, here I'm 100 years old, but when you're saying that, I'm remembering times that I was very uncomfortable, the oldest of 5 kids, when my parents were having an argument. I still have those memories.
Yeah, a lot of children feel that way, and they'll tell me about it.
Yeah.
But it takes time for them to come to that realization because they don't want to talk about it because of the shame.
Shame is a huge factor in terms of how people inappropriately cope with things. It really is debilitating.
Well, it's one of the 30 plus symptoms of PTSD.
Yeah.
So when you think about PTSD, you think about flashbacks, nightmares, hypervigilance, risky behaviors, but we don't think about shame. And it's actually one of the symptoms of PTSD. Why? Because we internalize that things happen to us because we were bad, because we were unworthy. And it's our brain's way of coping with trying to contain an outcome that we literally have no control of.
I'm really excited about getting into your book because first, when I read it, just some of the blurb, some of the background on it, high functioning, I kind of felt like, oh wow, this could be very relatable to like me and the circle of executive women that I'm with. We're all like incredibly type A, right? That type A. And when you talked about just even now PTSD, I think that's kind of coming into play in the business world now as well, just from experiences that we have in the workplace, right? We've heard so many public, we've seen so many public firings. We've seen so many women come out with their own experiences that have contributed to like their PTSD. And I feel like that term is becoming a little bit more, less about, I'll say traditionally, like we think about veterans and war and PTSD from that, but we're seeing it in a different context now too.
We are. Thanks for reminding me. Let's get the book out.
There's a book?
Yes. Okay. So you're absolutely right. Trauma in the classic sense is, something really significant. So think assault, think motor vehicle accident, think life-threatening. But what we're learning is that people can have some of those same trauma responses even when something terrible like that to that level doesn't happen. So when I have people coming into my office and they're like, I lost my business during COVID, they'll have these nightmares, they'll have this hypervigilance, they'll have these physiological reactions to this thing that wasn't technically life-threatening. So I can't just say to them, well, that doesn't count as a trauma. I say it doesn't count as a trauma according to the DSM, the textbook of psychiatry. But I see you. I know that you're experiencing this constant fight or flight, that you're making decisions based on being in this revved up mode. And so what you're talking about, where people may lose their jobs or get laid off, and then they have to think about their livelihood, they can have a response as if they were life-threatening.
How much of your work is helping your patients, your communities, rewrite the narrative?
There's actually a part of my book about rewriting your narrative, because many times when bad things happen to you, you start to view yourself as being the problem, right? Why didn't this happen to so-and-so? Why didn't this happen to my other friend? We had the same lives. So a lot of it is trying to figure out who you are in the setting of these bad things that happen versus you are the reason that these bad things happen to you. And so it's really important, because we've actually seen the research where when people have a mindset of, I'm the problem, they'll actually walk into a meeting and be like, you'll ask them, like, what do you think this person's thinking about you? Oh, they don't like me. Or what do you think your boss meant when they said that? Oh, they meant that I was like inadequate. Versus asking someone else who has a positive mindset about themselves, what do you think that person's thinking about you in that meeting? Oh, they're thinking that, we have to work together. What do you think the boss is thinking about you? Oh, the boss is saying, this is really important. It's not even about me, it's about this project. So when we believe, we have this perception that we're the problem, we walk into situations already judging that people don't want us there, that we don't belong, that there's something wrong.
And that's such a self-fulfilling circumstance. So just last week, I was talking to a psychologist at St. John's University, and she was telling me that in the research that she did, the most popular person in the school, everyone had everyone make a list of how many people, who the people are that they like. The most popular person in the school always had the longest list. So it's self-fulfilling. If you like people and you go out of your way to like people and let them know that, they're going to like you.
It's a form of projection.
And the inverse of that is, if you think everyone doesn't like you, you're going to make them uncomfortable and they're not going to like you.
Absolutely. Like, do a quick test. When you leave a building, hold the door for someone and smile and see what happens. You're projecting the positivity onto them, so they're going to project it back to you. Very rarely will someone be like, what's your problem?
I want to ask you about the name of your book, High Functioning, because I think of this in like two parts, right? If somebody's like, oh, I'm just getting by, or like, I'm just functioning today, right? But high functioning is almost like a really, it's got a positive connotation to it. You're a high achiever, you're high functioning, but then where does that go with what you're talking about with the, I guess maybe some of the red flags that come with perhaps being too high functioning?
Well, when we thought about the cover and the title, I wanted people to be like in a bookstore and then walk by and be like, oh, I'm high functioning. Wait a second, I'm depressed.
You want to ruin it.
But the reality is that many of us walk around with this mask of pathological productivity. We hide our struggles, we hide our pain, we hide our trauma.
By being busy?
By being busy, by hiding it behind productivity. And in classic PTSD research, people avoid people, places, situations that trigger their pain. But with high functioning folks, we avoid dealing with our pain by taking on a side project, taking on an additional project, never resting, cleaning out our garage, right? We always say things like, once this big thing happens, I can relax. But we don't relax, we take on more. So there's something that we're trying to outrun from the past. We think we're chasing happy, but we're outrunning past pain.
All right, I'm out of here. But the premise of your book is so interesting. We were chatting, Neha and Lisa and Michaela and I chatting the other day about your book. And I'm looking at these young women who have families, full-time plus careers, social responsibilities in their home, in their communities. And I always find myself saying, how do they get things done? How do they get all of this done? One time, my brother Chris, 10 years my junior, worked with me for 40 years in the company. And he was the CEO of the company. And we had just assigned 3 different projects that we thought were the most important. And one lady who was heading one of the projects came to my brother and said, did you do this purposely? He said, do what? You have these 3 important projects that you've outlined, and you told the whole company about it, and you picked these 3 people ahead of them. Each of us is a young mother with at least 2 kids at home. Did you do that by design? And we said, no, we both said, we hadn't even thought about it. She said, oh, we just thought it was because we don't have time for the nonsense. We just got to get shit done. But it's true. it's true that when you have all the responsibilities that you guys have, 8-year-olds at home, it's a balancing act. But you can be very high functioning and covering up the fact that you're dealing with issues.
In fact, you're rewarded for it. People say you're a girl boss. And, at periods in my career where I was the most high functioning, I remember people being like, you're killing it. And in my mind, I'm like, no, it is killing me. But we cope by, busying ourselves to distract from what's really happening. Some of us, it's because, well, we're not worthy if we don't have all these things going on. Yeah. And we have to challenge that constantly. Like, no, I'm enough. Yeah. Like, no one's going to think I'm less than if I say no, if I take a vacation, if I slow down, if I ask for help. And it's a constant struggle for many people.
It's so interesting because I do think sometimes the work becomes you. It's like it becomes so much of your identity. And I know that type, right? I was that type, but I've very much settled into.
Are you different now?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm still high functioning, but I've become more aware of the boundaries that I need to have, very conscious, but it's still difficult to break away from work in the sense where, I've got my phone near me and I've got to answer it because there's emails that I need to send out. But also I know that I've got an 8-year-old at home and I don't want to be that person that we see that's like, oh yeah, I'm busy. I've got work. I've got other things to do. So it's almost that you're kind of stuck in a catch-22, right? Like you're realizing it, but you're still sort of in that world.
Yeah. Nia, talk a little bit about Allison, your 8-year-old home from camp, and the questions she was going through with you. And
yeah.
My curiosity is because of your sensitivity.
You think so? Yeah.
I'm saying I would not have been that intuitive.
My 8-year-old's very intuitive. I was just saying.
No, I wouldn't have been as intuitive
as
me.
You. Yeah. So the backstory of this is that, she's at that age where, I would say maybe a year ago or even a few years ago, kids don't even think about what they sound like to other kids. Hey, do you want to play? I'm at the, but now she's 8 years old. And then there's she's really conscious.
First day of camp.
And she didn't really make any friends. And so I said, go up to them and ask them, giving her all the tips, ask them about, what new show that they like or what they're reading or where they go to school, ask them questions about themselves so you can get them to talk and you can relate to them. She's like, well, what if I'm asking too many questions? I'll be nosy. They're going to think I'm nosy. And I realized at that moment, she's now able to have that emotional intelligence where she's thinking ahead what other people's reactions are to her.
Yeah. I mean, this is an age where you're trying to figure out who you are in your friend group. Yeah. What's your identity?
Yeah.
And at that age in particular, being rejected by people your age is more painful than physical pain, right? Mm-hmm. It's more painful for them to say, I don't want to be your friend, than for someone to literally go over and whack you in the head, right? Yeah. So you were right in being intuitive and careful about her feelings, because in her world...
And it's so different, boys and girls.
So different in some cases, yeah.
I remember when my kids were that age, driving them to school, it was only half a mile away. The boys wouldn't notice anything. And my daughter, did you see the 3 girls back on the corner, the one that had the light green color? Super observant. And the boys are oblivious.
Yeah. They notice everything. Yeah.
Now, boys are careful about rejection too, but it looks different.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. It's less cerebral. It's more like, play with me and run with me.
Or I'll hit you.
Yeah.
Or let's kick down this tree, or let's damage this anthole, or things like that. Let's bond that way. And can I play with you? Versus girls will be sizing each other up, and they're already starting to figure out the clicks. And so in many ways,
but that never goes away either.
Doesn't it? Just gets worse.
It just gets
more challenging.
Worse. Yeah.
Well, you guys were chatting yesterday when I was started in the conversation, then I got moved to the periphery. But chatting, I was asking about being professionals with children, husbands, family, in-laws, parents to deal with. how do they find the time to maintain their own social network? It seems we write and talk a lot about adult male relationships, which I think there's a deficit of. But I was wondering how do young moms who are professionals, how do they maintain a network?
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot on my social media about my own struggles with high functioning depression and how I think I did one reel where someone's like, "You must be healed. You wrote the book," and I start laughing.
Yeah.
That's how you dealt with it.
Well, that's
Heal thyself.
right. But you do come in and out of it, and you have to use everything around you to keep you in check. My daughter will be like, "Mom, I am tired. Why are we doing this?" And I'm like, "You're right. I'm tired too. We're not going to do it." So I listen a lot to my family. I listen to my team. If my team is like, "We're doing too much," I have to train myself to be like, "You're right. We are. Let's slow down." And what I've found personally is that when I listen to those around me, the fear that I had that, I'd run out or I'm not going to have opportunities, it's not warranted. In fact, when I slow down and I'm more intentional, the opportunities are better.
Not more, but better.
Better. Not necessarily more, but they're more quality.
I wonder, Dr. Judith and Neha both, I'm suffers a little bit from the imposter syndrome because I can't believe all the good fortune I've had. And I accuse myself, maybe my assistant Patty accuses me, of taking on too many things because I can't believe I had the opportunities.
Yep, I talk about that scarcity mindset, scarcity trauma in my book heavily. I'm someone who came to this country from the Caribbean. So my immigrant parents were like, "You can't say no to things." At one point...
And you only had 4 or 5 jobs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly right. I think at one point when I was a high school...
SNL used to do this.
Yeah.
About, you only have 6 jobs,
Right.
Mom.
I actually did a trending video about all the jobs I've had. But I remember when I was applying for college, I think I applied to like 50 scholarships. And my guidance counselor was like, "What are you doing? This is a scholarship for an Italian-American football player. And I hate to break it to you, but you're not Italian-American.
Check.
You're not a football player."
Yeah.
But I got the scholarship.
It's great.
So no one else applied for it.
Yeah.
And this organization was like, "No one else applied but you, and we have to give this money away." And I was like, "I'll take it."
Done.
So there I am.
That's
with
amazing.
Did you score a touchdown?
No, I don't even know how football works. But I remember being at that dinner, the reception, and this guy next to me, we were eating spaghetti. He goes, "You Italian?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "All right,
That's fine. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome to the team.
Right." But all of those, type of experiences reinforce this, okay, you got to keep going for the opportunities. But really, it's out of this fear of running out.
Yeah.
So if you don't take everything, if you say no, you'll run out. And it's just not true. And so for me, it was having to challenge that by actually saying no.
Yeah.
And dealing with that, mourning that, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have," or "What if this happens?" And just going through those motions. Because what I found is that we don't sit in the emotions long enough. We busy ourselves so we don't feel. And feeling kind of sucks, right? You feel sad, you feel grief, but then you get over the hump. And then you start to actually feel the joy too. And I say feel the joy too because many of us have anhedonia. We're humans doing, we're not humans being. And we're doing all these things, but we're not necessarily enjoying it. And it's different if you're high functioning and you're enjoying it and you're getting pleasure and you feel good about it. But after a while, if you're just doing and you're not actually deriving pleasure, then you're numb.
So what tools do you guys use as a filter to say, what do you say yes to and what do you say no to?
Oh, wow. So my husband actually taught me this. He's really, really good at this. And I had to learn from him on just saying
Can't believe you admitting this.
No, he's amazing. I've learned so much. I'm a people pleaser, right? So I'm always like, yes, of course. Oh, this person did this for me, so I really need to pay them back.
By the way, 2 overachieving children of immigrants here.
Yeah.
It's true. And he kind of taught me, he's like, sometimes he's like, if I really don't want to do something, he's like, I'm going to say no. And so for me now, it's like, I have to say, do I want to spend my time, money, and energy for something that I don't want to do? Is that going to make me unhappy in that moment? Am I going to be happier at at home. I'll give you an example of the names have been changed. One of my close friends was kind of talking to me how she really didn't want to go to this wedding and was just dreading on her, but she felt like she had to go to this wedding. And I said, well, are you going to have fun? No. You're going to spend like $2,000 on a ticket to go there, take your PTO, go travel someplace to be at a place you don't want to be, knowing that you're going to be unhappy. And she was like, oh, when you put it to me like that.
And then add in, what would you do with that time if you didn't go?
Yeah, it's true. But it's like almost that reset. You do need somebody almost external to tell you, because I get caught up into it.
I have that person in my life is my assistant. She said, I'm teaching you how to say no. And so something came up the other day. I said, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And you're learning. Yeah. You're learning.
It's true.
But I like what you said about what are you missing out on if you say yes.
Yeah, because you only have so much time. So if you don't go to that wedding, what would you do with that time otherwise? And if it's just relax, okay. Well, maybe you could say, I'm deliberate about doing X that's been on my list that I haven't gotten to.
Well, for me, it's how do I feel? And I talk about the 5 V's.
Oh, it's all about your feeling.
It really is. Listen, as someone who's pushed it down for so long, now I listen to everything about how I feel, from the way that my body feels. Like, do I physically feel tense when I think about going to this thing? Okay, I have to listen to that. What is that about? Do I feel exhausted and burnt out? Because should I be like using the last part of my battery on this event? How do I feel when I don't go? Like, am I excited about not going? Oh, don't ignore that one, because it's not just one feeling.
So this is your checklist.
This is my checklist. And I go through this with my clients because many times they don't validate. They don't self-validate. We often sit through meetings, we don't eat, we're hungry, and we just push it down. Well, I just have to do one more meeting. We self-invalidate all the time. Or we sit through all these meetings. I think I talked about this when I first met you all, and we don't even like pee.
Oh, yeah.
How many of the executives I work with, they'll go through a whole day, they're human camels, they just don't go to the bathroom. They rush home, and the first thing they do is run to the restroom. When you get into the practice of listening to how you feel physically and mentally, you make better decisions because you understand why it is that you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get over that reference for a while.
What role do you think technology plays in this? Because I will say for me, I hate this thing. I love it and I hate it because it does give you connection. I've got, like, how I maintain my sanity. I've got a million different group texts with family, girlfriends from high school, college friends. And those are my venting sessions, my community, my executive friends, where we're all in the same.
What do you hate about this?
It's the notifications. It's the time stuff.
You can turn them off.
It's really difficult. It's the device.
Yeah.
It's the device. But I see more and more children, getting kind of sucked into this screen time.
I've heard you talk about that already a couple of times. It's a huge issue for you now. Do your 8-year-olds have smartphones?
No,
No.
not at all. I mean, I've explained to my child that literally I use the science. And she's like, but why? She's in that phase of, but why?
But why, yes.
And I show her, I have a brain at home, and I'm like, when the brain is exposed to all of this excitement, it stops feeling joy. But why?
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to not just feel joy, we're supposed to feel boredom. We're supposed to be bored so that we tinker. Just last night, we hand-built a little bedroom for her American Girl doll, right? Yeah. We didn't go out and buy it, but I wanted her to use her hands, and we decorated it, and we put gemstones on it, and we painted it. And she was so excited, and she goes, Mommy, tomorrow can we build a bathroom? I'm like, yeah, we can, There's something about using your hands, using your senses, and doing that with someone that you love.
Absolutely.
That just brings so many joy chemicals from all different angles in the brain. But when you're on a screen, you're only getting one or two angles. You're not getting the full experience. And children need that. But we're learning that adults need it too.
Absolutely.
So there's a recent study, I think it was one of the University of Texas schools. They took the smart phone capacity away from the phones, essentially making it like a flip phone. And they had adults for 2 weeks on basically a flip phone. So they could only text or call. And what they found was that after 2 weeks, it was as if they were being treated with an antidepressant. Why? Because their joy points went up. So they found that they were eating.
So interesting.
Yeah, they were eating their food and tasting it. They were talking to each other. They were out in nature.
You mean they didn't have the screen set up? How'd they eat?
Exactly, right? They were actually like tasting what they were eating, not just shoving it in front of a screen. They were getting better sleep. And in the research in my lab, not too far from here, when you add up the points of these experiences, like you're getting rest, you're connecting, you're savoring your food, that's how we actually measure happiness in the science. But we're leaving our points of joy on the table when we're on the screen all day long. So we're literally becoming more depressed.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
Now, talking about multi-generational, we, at the Flowers Companies, we open the NASDAQ every year, the Tuesday before Mother's Day. And this year, we invited Neha, and Neha brought her mom. And tell the story about your mom and her reaction to that day.
Oh, she's she's from India, and for her it was such a terrific moment because I'm like, Mom, like, look at you, you're in Times Square, you're literally on the NASDAQ board, and with Jim, and she grew up in a small fishing village, and I was like, what a full circle moment for you. The whole car ride back, she was like silent. I'm like, what's going on? She was just WhatsApping everybody, the pictures. But it was wonderful to see her share that.
Multi-generational.
Yeah.
Your mom growing up, no electronics.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this fishing village. Now here in the United States, with her daughter, super successful, with the next generation who will not even be able to comprehend where grandma came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a beautiful story.
And tell us about your migration from Trinidad, 4 years old. New Jersey you went to?
Yes. So I moved to this country when I was 4 and grew up in New Jersey, but originally from Trinidad. So I had a similar experience growing up where you got your fresh fish, like when I woke up in the morning, milk, fish, you go to the beach every weekend. And so a lot of times I think people lose sight of the fact that there were reasons that when you had less, you were happier. You were eating fresh foods that were not processed. When you're busy, you don't necessarily think, oh, like, is this healthy? You're just like, got to get fuel, right? And connection. You actually talked to people, you looked at them, you held their hand. When you touch people, you get the release of oxytocin, which is a love hormone. So it's...
Is that right?
Yeah, and you're getting that joy, again, in the different avenues from your brain, not just one, FaceTime, which is fine if you have no other options, but there's nothing that replaces that. When you think about being on screens all day long, even within the work setting, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at 3 other people, you're trying to present yourself in a way that is unnatural. Again, we can't replace this. It helps our lives to be more efficient and get business done, but it's important to acknowledge that you need breaks in between. Maybe turn the screen off, maybe do a standing meeting, audio only. Because what happens is when you're looking at yourself on those screens, you're starting to scrutinize yourself. And even when I'm in my Zoom with my therapy patients, I'm like, why did I draw my eyebrow like that today?
I have the same question.
But I should be focusing on the patient, like, oh, I wonder what they're thinking, right? So all these ways are draining our brain from joy. So think about the simpler ways in life, what we're losing. We're not going to revert back to that, but let's try and hold on to some elements.
I mean, there are some things that I've gone back to, like physical books. I've just in the last year or so, I'm not reading on my phone anymore because I'm not absorbing what's in the book. And I also love the feel of being able to go from this. You can't do that on a phone, or even when we talk about, so we get these Amazon gift cards, or we get a lot of digital experiences that are very like intangible. Like you can't touch them, but something like flowers, something like a book, these are like really simple, but you can hold them and they're there. I think there's, I don't know, it feels like we're a little bit more grounded in reality when it comes to these things.
I find I'm gifting books more.
Yeah.
And I never gift the audio version or a digital version. It's always the hard copy.
Yes, I'm the same way. And Anybody who knows me in my lab, you can visit and talk to them. My love language is flowers. So like when I got this invitation, literally, like they'll tell you, like I just find flowers so fragile. And with my patients, I'll say, if you ever question your existence, like just look at a flower, look at a plant. The chances of us existing are just so small. And when you look at these forms of nature, it just reminds you that you're here for a reason. Flowers do that for me.
So back to this 4-year-old kid from Trinidad, migrates to New Jersey. Dad was a pastor?
Yes, my dad is still a pastor.
Still, yeah.
In fact, when a funny story I tell is that before I switched from the traditional medical fields into psychiatry, I was an anesthesiology resident at Columbia, and I did that for 2 years. And then when I found myself joyless, like I'm not talking to patients, I put them to sleep, I wake them up, and like this is not what I signed up for. I told them I was interested in psychiatry, and they said to me, "Why you want to hang out with crazy people all day?" That was the first response, and I said, "They're not crazy. We all have mental health just like we all have physical health, and we have to take care of it." And so now my dad has completely changed his perspective. Now he like wants me to come into the church and talk about mental health rather than things being like due to like spiritual matters. They're related to mental health conditions.
So you went to junkie schools, went to Duke undergrad, Columbia for your medical training and psychiatric training, NYU Langone for another fellowship. Was that the child psychiatry fellowship? Typical immigrant success story, right? Driven.
High achiever, high functioning.
With a lot of imposter syndrome. I tell you, sometimes I walked into rooms and I was like, no one in here knows that I don't have any money, you know, like, because a lot of people, they go to these schools and they come from, you know, a wealthier background. But, you know, somewhere along the way, I had mentors who said, you are here for a reason. Don't try to hide who you are and just be your authentic self.
Write that narrative.
Yes. Challenge and own it, change it. And that's really helped me because for much of my career, I was trying to be like other people, like, oh, I have to do this. And when I stopped doing that.
You still have heroes?
I still do. I stay in touch with my mentors always. That. Yeah. You never know when you're gonna need them, you know? And I send them flowers.
Now, I got to ask you from a business perspective, an executive perspective, what are some of the red flags that you've seen in, you know, high achievers, high functioning? I'm speaking mostly about like technology executives because it feels like there's a certain, the pace of technology is accelerating so fast. So there's an immense amount of pressure to stay ahead of the competition, to compete. And you're sort of in this like race, right? What are some of the red flags that we can be aware of? I'm not going to say that we're not going to compete because we are going to compete, but how do you sort of ground yourself to say that, you know, I need to take a break or I need to do a reset?
Well, I actually have this acronym called RESET, and I developed it initially for these online platforms for these creators, but it's now really helped people in technology fields. So the R is realize how tech is impacting you. So is it causing you to be more depressed? Is it causing you to get worse sleep? Is it causing you to be distracted, not present? Is it harming your relationships? So really realize how it's impacting you. The E is educate yourself. So there are all these studies now about the pediatric brain, but like that other study I talked about, there are studies being done on how it actually impacts your brain, changes your brain. So educate yourself. The S is strategy. What is your plan going to be? Are you going to limit exposure to maybe like one audio Zoom meeting, one full-on visual and audio? Are you going to limit, the amount of time you log off? Are you going to be offline by 7 p.m.? Stick to that plan. Are you going to do it as a family? No tech at the dinner table. After 9 p.m. off of screens because it interferes with your natural melatonin. And then the next E is expectation. What are you hoping to get out of this? Are you hoping to feel more connected? Are you hoping to feel better rested, more focused, less depressed, less anxious? And then the T is thoughtfulness. Was your plan too rigid? Was it too relaxed? Did you get what you wanted out of it? Be thoughtful about the process. So the reset method actually has helped a lot of people. Initially, I developed it for content creators, and then I started using it in my practice for pediatric patients. And then I started using it at tech companies because a lot of times we are on screens. We're trying to
It's so good to give give people tools that they can self-correct.
yes, and tools that they can remember because, we're so inundated with all this information. If you have an acronym, a good acronym goes a long way.
There's another one in your book, Tides?
Yes.
Tides.
Yes. So TIES is one that I developed to help people realize the correlation between mental health symptoms and hormonal fluctuations. And this is primarily, it can be used for all hormonal fluctuations, but I developed it initially for menopause and perimenopause because there isn't a lot of research on how mental health is impacted by hormonal fluctuations. Not to say that women go crazy when they're going through this time, but they may have some of the symptoms like the T, thought issues, word finding difficulties, problems with multitasking, forgetfulness, the I, identity issues. Because of your body and brain changing, you start to question who you are. So that sense of self starts to get a little challenged. The E is emotional changes. So some people will become more irritable, moody, sad, depressed, anxious, not full blown a diagnosis, but symptoms of it during the hormonal fluctuations. And then the S is sleep. Sleep is impacted by these hormonal fluctuations. So you may not be able to sleep as deep, or you have a harder time falling asleep. And then also the physical symptoms like hot flashes can get in the way of sleep. So TIES allows you to realize, these are happening to me. And we used to think like, in your 50s, this is when you worry about it. We're now learning that these changes start like 10 years before that. So you should start thinking about this in your late 30s, in your early 40s. If you're noticing these symptoms, it could be related to the hormonal fluctuations of perimenopause and menopause.
Someone on stage in Boston at a Living Will event that you spoke at talked about the fact that they, in their whole medical training, had exactly 1 hour of discussion about menopause.
That's unfortunate. Like 52% of most healthcare professionals got one course. 52%. And that's like, if you got that, So it is largely misunderstood and unstudied. And a lot of patients are starting to educate themselves.
You've been involved in 100 different research projects. How do you balance your time now? How do you deal with the time stress that you have? You have the book out now. I'm sure there's got to be a pretty proactive and active book tour. You have research, you have teaching, you have private patients, you have speaking opportunities. You're one of the most in-demand speakers we know. We talked about being able to say, no, you're not very good at that. But, Irene, I know pushes you all the time. But how do you say, what do I want and where am I going?
I've gotten really good at sharing.
So you said you have a team.
Stingy, yes. I used to be so stingy, like, no one can do this but me. And like my lab manager, I love her. She's a marathon runner. And tells you something. And she will be like, no, you got to start saying no. She said, trust us, And
so tell us about the team.
My team, I love my team. I have a board certified psychiatrist who's my sub-investigator. And really the reason I hired her was so that I could start saying no, so that she could lead. Mm-hmm. I hired someone to do what I thought I can only do. And again, when I realized that letting go and letting her lead, I flourished. I challenged my deepest fear that if I, God forbid, didn't do everything, it would fall apart. Opposite happened. I flourished. And then I have a lab manager and now a second lab manager.
And what are the lab managers managing?
The studies. So I do phase 2 to phase 4 clinical research studies. We enroll people into studies that are they're either on placebo or they're on medication or treatment.
So the lab work is always around a medication?
A medication or a therapy or a tech. And so they're double-blind, placebo-controlled research studies, so we can see the efficacy of certain treatments. So for example, the only FDA-approved medication for postpartum depression in the United States, we did those studies. So we enroll patients into those. Right now, we're doing a psilocybin study. It's a psychedelic for postpartum depression. We have one coming up for treatment-resistant depression.
So for specific treatment application.
Yes, yeah.
I've become intrigued with this whole idea of psychedelic treatment. I first heard about it 3 years ago. I thought, come on, I'm not buying this. But I've met some people now. There's a company that we've had them on our stage called Cybin. It's a New York Stock Exchange listed company. It's quite expensive because to get a treatment, it takes 8 hours and you need 2 or 3 professionals with you for that whole time and the prep time. And so it's quite expensive. But the published work is, oh my God, it's having great breakthroughs with people who've had severe clinical depression for a long time.
Yes, yeah. And the limiting factor is the people. You need a team.
Yes. So and now the microdosing, right?
Yes. So in our studies, we have to have 2 therapists in the room for these long sessions. Patient can't leave. I mean, it's not yet legal. So these are FDA monitored studies. So you have to stick to the protocol. You can't stray. You can't be like, oh, you can go home early. No, you're staying.
Yeah.
But the patients know this because they've searched for options and the ones that are available don't work for them.
Yeah.
And so the thinking is that psychedelics allow the brain to connect in ways that it can't with other medications. And we used to think that, okay, this part of the brain is anxiety, this part is depression. What we're learning now is that it's the connection, it's the communication that allows the healing, that allows you to think differently. And it's thought that psychedelics will do that.
A little bit of resetting.
Yes, it is, because you're in a default mode. So it allows you to reset. Absolutely.
So your lab business, is that a business?
It is. Yeah, it is a business.
And what do you call that business?
Manhattan Behavioral Medicine.
And who's funding those studies?
They're pharma.
So pharma companies will hire you
Yeah.
to run these clinical trials, report out as objectively on the efficacy of their medications.
Yes. So we're one site, but what they do is they will employ multiple sites around the world. And they'll collect data from all these sites, crunch the data, present it to the FDA, and then you decide if the drug works or not. And many times it doesn't, but we won't know because we're blinded.
Nia, having been an investigative journalist, would appreciate that the necessity of having multiple locations because your lab people might want it to work.
Correct.
So you have to have other people
Yes.
doing the same things to make sure all the biases are removed.
Yeah. And everyone has to do it the same way.
Right.
So it's standardized. Everyone has to do the scales the same way. The scales are recorded. So if you say it the wrong way, they'll be like, oh, you should have said it this way. So it's highly monitored. But for that reason, we can't know who's on what because we can't put our bias into there. The patients don't know. So they're double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies.
Yeah. Wow. So that's a business.
Yes.
Your publishing is another site.
Yes.
Is there something you call the whole thing of Dr. Judith Joseph?
There's the research business. There's the media business. They're separate. They don't cross.
And then there's the clinical.
And then there's the private practice, which is me seeing patients for therapy.
And how do you still do that? Where do you find the time? That's deliberate, obviously.
Yes. I only have my patients that I've had for years. Some of them from when they were little and now they're young adults. So I love therapy. I love still seeing patients. Remember, I went from anesthesiology where I never saw patients and I deliberately knew that would not work for me. I'm someone who needs connection.
Yeah.
And unlike most therapists, I could have just said, oh, I'm just going to do a one-on-one practice. But I miss working in teams. I come from a big family. I have 3 siblings. My dad's a pastor. We're always in the community. So I knew I didn't want to work alone. I tried that for 1 year where I was in private practice and I was like, I need to be around people. And I like using my hands. So I should really look into research again because I did it when I was in training. And that's why I said, let me start a research lab because I have a team. I get to see my team every day. We work together on the research studies. Then I see my private patients when I see them. And then I do my content when I carve out time for that. And it all kind of feeds into each other because a lot of my ideas for my content come from the research.
Yeah.
A lot of my ideas from the skits come from my patient interactions. And some of them give me requests.
They send that over to you. Yeah. I've got two questions for you. Because we talked about the younger generation and how they're sort of interacting. One of the things that I'm seeing is.
See, when you guys say younger generation, I'm looking at you.
No, I'm looking at them. I'm looking at them. But there's I'll say boomers who are retiring at this point. A lot of them are high functioning, right? This is a generation that has been heads down, working hard, all of this. Now, many of them, unfortunately, are at that stage where they're forced to retire, either by family pressure or quite literally aging out of the workforce in the sense that the companies are pushing them out. What happens to a person who is very high functioning, who's kind of held that identity of a job and meaningful work and purpose? And if you kind of take that away from them, and it's almost like a shock reality, right? Like you go from being in office, being at work, you're producing, you're commuting to work, you're driving, and then all of a sudden you don't have that anymore. Like what happens to that person and how do you cope?
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is identity. And if you develop an identity around a thing that you do and you don't build it around anything else, you will feel empty when that role is gone. And one of the 5 V's in my book is values. So I really encourage people to tap into the values, things that bring them purpose and meaning, things that are priceless versus things with price tags. A role is a price tag, You're not going to be on your deathbed saying, oh, I wish I could do one more meeting. Like no one says that. That means it's like no one. But what you will say is, oh, I wish I saw that sunset one more time, or I wish, I got to spend more time with my family. These are the things that are priceless. So I urge my clients to tap into the priceless and, prioritize those in ways that you normally would only prioritize the price tags. And that seems to work. And so, when people are being pushed out for other reasons like ageism, I mean, that's not okay. But what I would say is, before that point, start to really tap into those things.
Just to kind of follow up, for someone who is high functioning, there's that even if you are on your weekend off, let's say, you're very restless because you need to be doing something, and then all of a sudden you don't have that role anymore. How do you tell them to sort of reclaim their joy? Is that for somebody that doesn't really go out to the garden or doesn't go for a walk? It's almost a little bit of a shock to the system, right? When they're forced to, oh wow, look at all this time I have and I don't like being restless.
Well, with my patients where they struggle to find what their values are, we'll do a little bit of archaeology. So I work with children, so I use a lot of these tools with adults. It works because adults are just grown-up kids. So I'm like, put on your archaeology hat, you're Indiana Jones, you're digging back into your past. And let's look at old pictures. And I give them an assignment. Busy people love homework, by the way. And they'll bring in old pictures, and we're looking through these old pictures together, and they're telling a story. And then what we do is we start to write down, well, who were you around when you were feeling the most joyful? What were you doing when you were feeling the most joyful? One of the examples I talk about in my book is a client who used to tinker a lot with their hands, and they're no longer tinkering. They're tech people. Typing is not tinkering. And we started the project where they would start tinkering again. And it started off small, let's look it up online. If you had to buy this train set, how much would it be? Could you do it in parts? And then let's take it a step further. Let's go to the store. You go to the store, you start inquiring, you start touching the things, you start buying the tools, you start, doing the project little by little. And they found themselves looking forward to tinkering. For others, it's cooking. For others, it's nature. If you live in a big city and when you were a kid, you used to camp, but you don't do that anymore. There are ways to get back into these things. So the example of nature, I would say, get a plant, get a flower, put it in your office. How does it make you feel picking it out, chatting with the florist, all these things, or ordering it. Expose your brain to the thing that you once loved, but it takes some digging. You have to be your own historian. But you're worth it because there's only one you, and there'll only ever be one you. So take the time to understand the science of your happiness.
Now, when you talk about the retiree, it's so much about identity. And everything's a podcast guest. There's another podcast guest who I mention often. Her name is Cynthia Covey Haller. Her father was Stephen Covey, and she wrote with her father The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And she had been working on a book when her dad passed with him, and she decided to finish it. And the name of the book captures it all. It's called Living Life in Crescendo.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as I saw the title, I knew I'd like the book. And we've had her on the show, and she's terrific, and read the book. And I've gifted the book to a lot of friends who are dealing with exactly that circumstance. End of the natural career cycle.
Yeah.
What's next? And her premise is simple. We have a choice. We can lead life, think of it musically, in diminuendo, dun, 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 dun. Or we can leave it in crescendo, dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And I took that so to heart, because that's how I think about my life. I just stepped down as CEO of our company. I fired myself, replaced myself with someone who's got a whole lot of different skills, a higher intellect and all, to do the things that I need someone better than me. But I'll continue to do things that only I can do. But my wife and I are thinking a lot about living life in crescendo. We know a lot. We've achieved a lot. We've been involved in a lot. We've seen a lot. So we can still affect things and get things done, but it's not going to be in the same way it was. So it's what other interests we have, the charity we're involved in. So I think I'm going out, but I'm going out screaming.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And it's not for everybody. Some people, we have friends who are, and then you have to realize you have to manage your social network as you get older differently. Because we lose friends to Florida. We're not down, we have a place in Florida, but we're not down there very much. But that's tough on my wife because most of her best friends are there. So there'd be times she's not around me because she's down there. And I have to be fair. I can't say, well, you have to stay here because I'm busy and not have friends around. So friends are important, and you have to manage it differently at different life stages. And that's why I was so keen on the two of you and how you manage that aspect of your life, because it's easy to neglect your friends because you're so busy.
I had an amazing experience. So I'm part of this group called Athena Alliance. It's a group for executive women. So I just moved back to New Jersey about a few years ago, and I realized I don't really
She
have
lived in
any.
the deep south.
I lived in the deep south. Yeah. Probably my reporting took me everywhere, and I thought, I really need friends. But you also have to commit, right? Like you have to show up for people. And I met this amazing, she's the founder of Athena Alliance, Coco Brown, and she built this incredible community of executive women, senior executive women, who are all in these business roles. They're founders, they're entrepreneurs, they're all doing something. And it was being around a group of people who are in that sort of same space where you can rely on them to answer a phone call or a text or whatever it is, but it was showing up for each other pretty frequently. But we ended up spending about 4 days at another friend's house. And, I left my daughter and my husband here in New Jersey. All of us went and spent, 3-4 days together working on kind of a project. And it was so great because I just realized I hadn't been around a group of people that were not my family, and just going on a hike in the morning or cooking breakfast together. It was just very good for the soul.
Mm-hmm. And also when you see that other people are going through what you're going through, you don't blame yourself, because a lot of times as working moms, we're like, oh, I wish I could have done this differently, or maybe I should have spent more time. But then when you hear from other people who are going through what you're going through, you realize, oh, it's not just me, and that eases that burden a bit.
We've gone all this time and not mentioned AI.
Oh, gosh.
Nia, how do you think AI is changing your world?
Productivity has been a big talker in how AI is boosting productivity. And in a way, it is freeing up time in terms of us not having so many, I look at your notes here, AI can
Yeah, I'm very AI.
Yeah,
Pen and
you know,
paper.
but it can organize your calendar. It can help you plan. It's your partner in these things. I was just at the AWS summit in New York last week, and we were talking about AI essentially developing new applications on its own. So there's this incredible excitement around the possibilities of AI for productivity, for businesses, for people. But at the same time, I know that there's a lot of fear that is a big part of the societal conversation on AI replacing humans or AI taking jobs or job displacement. That conversation, is...
Disruption is here, and
Yeah.
it's going to be big.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. It's going to happen. I just encouraged my son, who's in his 40s, works at the flowers companies, to switch his role to work in the AI team. Even though he's an old guy, he can still learn new tricks. I just think it's going to have tremendous impacts on everything. I just know it's going to be very disruptive in the next 5 years.
I think so too.
Which is going to increase the demand on people to be high functioning and to understand. Well, we have a friend who's on the board of Flowers. His name is Shelley Palmer, lives here in town, and he's one of the foremost experts on AI. And what he told us at our last board meeting was, in his work, the people who invest the time and learn AI skills feel like they have a superpower. Mm-hmm. So they may get disrupted. Their job may be eliminated, but they don't dread it. They don't live in fear of it because they know they are very marketable. They can get another job if they want a job. They can hang out a shingle. They can become a consultant. They can build a business because they have these superpowers. And that's what I'm trying to stress with my kids, mm-hmm. grandkids, and all my team members at the flowers companies is we'll give you all the tools you need. Spend the time, learn.
Yeah.
Figure out how AI replaces your job, and then you're more valuable to us because then you can do things that other people can't do.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think your world is going to be disrupted because the demands for people on how to cope with these changes is going to be enormous.
Well, they're already using Chat GPT for therapy. Mm-hmm. And there's all these memes about people using the Chat GPT for therapy. The problem with that is that you're asking an algorithm, you're asking a computer something in a biased way.
But it could be helpful if they could look up one of your acronyms, say, I know I heard him mention that, and boom, and it can get to it.
It's really effective for something called psychoeducation, which is the first part of a therapy. It's like
psychoeducation.
Mm-hmm. It's like the background. So, for example, the psychoeducation part of a therapy is this is what depression is, or this is what anxiety is. This is why you have both, or you don't have both, or you have one or the other.
Power.
Mm-hmm. So, I think it's very great. It's very good for that if it's pulling from the right resources. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help with the nuanced parts of, let's say I saw a patient last week and I know that they said a theme and I remember that theme and I know where it comes from because it's from childhood and they're acting out that theme with me in the therapy. And a part of the treatment is for them to heal through our attachment. It doesn't help with the nuances of therapy, but it does help with the psychoeducation. I think one day it will be there. My favorite movie is Terminator 2 and The Matrix. Like those are my two. I know it's going to be there.
Yeah.
Well, it's the future, It's going to replace many of us. Is it there yet for therapy? No. Should we embrace it? Yes. Or else we're going to be left behind.
Neha has a artificial friend. We've read that there are tens of thousands of young men who have relationships with an avatar.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's bizarre to me, but also I think it says a lot about where we are in society with the loneliness epidemic, right? That as connected as we all are, it still feels like we're really far apart and people seem to be craving that level of connection and having a chat bot that kind of gives you the response that you're looking for. It's almost like, self-affirmation, right? But there are reports that can go astray as well. That's a little bit, as a parent, that's very concerning because those applications those apps are out there.
But then I see the good in it too. I was chatting with someone yesterday who's working on a robot, essentially, that they would place in the home of someone who's older and lives alone, and they could have a conversation with it. Take it to the extent that you will, but if it's going to remind you to make sure you took your meds, or you're active and you're moving, or you're preparing a meal, or you can interact with family members who could dial in through it. I can see the positives. I could also see a whole generation of people who only have relationships with their at-home avatar.
I think so, especially people who are socially anxious or, in some forms of neurodivergence where being around others is just so taxing. But, with regards to the poor outcomes, it can go really south, I think that especially now with boys, there's this movement of, masculinity that's a bit toxic where some boys are saying that 80% of girls will only go for 20% of guys. So this is my only chance to have a hot girlfriend.
They've seen the data.
They have seen the data and they're like, you know what? This is my only chance. It's safe. I won't be rejected because rejection is painful. I'll be accepted. I would want to challenge that because again, we talked about getting all the avenues of joy. If you're not getting all of those human sensations, and you're missing out on so much in life. And so two things can be true. You can have your AI friend, your bot friend, but also make space for human friends,
But I could see, on the other hand, someone taking your book and saying, let's say they named their avatar Joe. Joe, pull up for me Dr. Judith Joseph's acronym on how to do. I think I'm slipping into a state of blah. And there was an acronym she had. Would you pull it up or walk me through it? I could see that being really beneficial.
Yeah.
And it's licensed content from you, but that someone could say, hey, I'm slipping in here. It happens to me this time of year, every year, but I'm going to go with Dr. Judith's first aid kit and prescription to how to walk myself through those tools. I could see that being very beneficial.
I think it is. And that's the psychoeducation part.
Yeah.
I use AI when I'm trying to find papers to compare which papers for what condition. I think it's very powerful. Even in clinical research, we're using AI to help patients to stay on task with their dosing. So we have to embrace it. It is the future. We will be left behind if you're not embracing it. But also don't forget the human elements because we do still need humans. We're not there quite yet.
So, Neha, something you're excited about in the next year?
Oh, in the next year. You're going to go in the next year already?
This year, this upcoming year, something you're excited about, you're anticipating?
My gosh, we are going on a beach vacation. And for me, that's a little difficult because I don't like to be restless. And this is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me.
So beach being unplugged.
Unplugged. So I'm going to, I'm excited about it because it's going to be a challenge for me to actually just go and do nothing but sit on the beach and read.
I have a book for you to read.
And read a book. Typically, I pack an entire schedule of we're going to go visit this place, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. So this is the first vacation that I'll have in a very long time where there's no plans other than to just go to the beach.
Dr. Judith, what's on your list of things that you're excited upcoming?
I'm excited about this book tour being done. I am grateful. I love the fact that people wanted to buy a book about depression. I was shocked. I always tell my team, I'm like, I can't
you trick us into what it's about. It's not about depression. It's about being high functioning. I want to be high functioning.
It's about reclaiming joy, right? And I had so much fun writing the book.
How long did it take?
2 years, but I loved it. My publishers were like, we never see this. Authors are usually we're dreading this. I loved writing it. Marketing is a different thing because of my whole imposter syndrome. No. I'm always like, oh, can you support my book? I'm very shy about it. And they're like, no, you have to be aggressive, push your book. But the marketing was challenging for me because of that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it wrapping up and then relaxing, intentional
And what's relaxing for you?
Oh, my daughter. I love spending time with her and literally just playing with her. For many years.
Like building that.
Yeah. I used to dread playing. And then I challenged that a bit because for me it was work because I was working too much. So working hard and then coming home and playing with a child was work. Now that I don't work as hard, playing is actually fun.
Yeah.
Is it therapeutic?
It is. I like to tinker too.
Yeah.
Well, it's been
love that.
such a joy to spend time with both of you. Neil, thanks for.
We had to ask you some questions.
Oh,
What are
no.
you looking forward to?
If we weren't out of time, we'd be doing
No,
that.
we've got time. There's no. What are you looking forward to?
I take the last 2 weeks of August off, or I try to. I haven't successfully done that in a few years. This year looks like it'll be successful. So we have a beach house, kids, grandkids, whatever, although their schedules start to kick in. But that's my happy thought coming up.
Okay. Is that where you find your joy?
It is, because, we're lucky. We have 3 kids, 7 grandkids, brothers, sisters, all around. And so usually it's good weather at the end of August, unless one of those early hurricanes come this way. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, that's nice.
But I was looking forward to today, and I'm not disappointed. You're two terrific
thank
people.
you. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this with me. And
I'm excited about
Dr.
this
Judith,
book.
you are amazing. You'd have to have some pretty good ego strengths to be hanging around in your life.
That's true.
Thank you.
You set a high bar, and we're so lucky that you set a high bar for yourself in work that helps other people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
I'll be gifting high functioning a lot for the next several months, because it's a nice way to do something nice for somebody else besides just give them a gift.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Judith Joseph. Thank you, Neha Curtis.
Thank you for having us too, Jim.